Welcome back, this is Chess on Fire, and today we are going to study endgames further. Now, the queen is one of the most powerful pieces on the chessboard. The clearest advantage of a queen is its mobility. It is often a very powerful piece when there is a lot of space on the board. Meantime, while it has power, it is also the most complex thing in endgames. And indeed, the fact is that most grandmasters still fail to play queen endgames perfectly. But worry not. I'm going to show you 10 positions today that is going to bring your queen endgames up a level. I'm going to help you make your queen endgames a lot clearer in theory and also in action. Let us dive in immediately. So what I'm going to focus on today is that I will be talking about the imbalances that are possible in queen endgames. It is the best way for us to tackle how to win in queen endgames. Now, the first and most obvious one would be passed pawns. So in this case, the position I'm showing you right now shows a passed pawn close to promotion, but it is not actually all that easy to win with this position. Take a few seconds and try to find the first move from white. 3, 2, 1. Okay, intuitively the move might be king h6, but the fact is this is actually a blunder because we have queen h4, and after queen h4 there's king g7, and a beautiful move king a3 leads to a draw. We'll see why this is the defensive measure in a few moves. I will be showing you another line demonstrating the logic behind king a3. I will not show it right now. But what I can tell you is that putting your king in front of your own pawn as the attacking side is incorrect. You should avoid that. Now let's see what is the correct approach here. The correct approach would be to play queen f6. And now the fact is, after some checks, eventually you can slide out of the way, and when he tries to pin the pawn, and evidently in order to promote the pawn, the sole thing is that you need to avoid checks and avoid any other tricks. So here the grandmaster playing with white made a blunder, which is queen f4. This move is incorrect in view of king a3. Now let me explain why king a3 is the correct defensive measure. The reason is that when facing a pawn, either on the knight files or on the rook files, the correct way is actually to put your king opposite the other corner. Now, of course, I should mention that given any pawn position, if we drag our king all the way over here, then this is an easy draw. I hope you guys understand that. But when the king is far off, the correct way is actually to go in the opposite corner. The reason is rather logical. I couldn't show you through pure calculation or lines, but how you should think about it is that when facing these pawns, you're trying to give a lot of checks. You're trying to give checks with your queen. Now, the fact is, your opponent is trying to stop you from giving checks. But generally, that is very difficult because a king can be checked from 5 different angles. And whenever your queen is positioned on one spot, it can generally move to 2 other spots that can deliver a check. The only way is basically to give a counter check. That is either pin your queen to your king, or to give a check while blocking your check. So in both of these cases, imagine your king in the center, and compare it to when your king is on a1 or in the corner. The possibility of being checked, counter-checked, is smaller if you think about it geometrically. So the rule here is actually to move downwards towards the corner. But unfortunately, the player with black made a mistake, king a5. This gave white, again, a chance to win in this position. And the line follows as this. In a few moves, the king went on a long journey all the way over here. And you see now that no matter what check is given, there is a counter check. That is exactly what I'm trying to say there. So I'm done demonstrating the first example of a pawn versus a queen and a pawn versus a queen. And if you can pick up something from that is that, first of all, if the king is in front of the pawn, it is a easy draw. If the king is away from the pawn, the correct way is to defend from the other corner to avoid counter checks. And the third thing is that the stronger side should avoid putting his king in front of the pawn. That's the 3 things you can pick up from this example. And now let's move on to a slightly more complex example of a passed pawn. Now, in this position, first of all, queen c6 is definitely wrong because of queen f4 and a potential perpetual check over here. But in order to create the passed pawn, we can actually play b5 here, making a breakthrough. And after takes, even though this pawn is also passed, it is definitely 1 square short. And since we can push it immediately now, this pawn is a lot stronger than this pawn. So here, black went for this defensive measure, queen c2. Queen e5 is played, king h6, and now queen d6. So here, the side playing with white, Maroczy, and in case you play the Sicilian, Maroczy bind is actually named after this guy. So, you know, he is definitely a strong grandmaster, but queen d6 is actually a mistake. According to the engine, this pawn should be taken. Because that Maroczy thought that this b5 pawn could potentially serve as an umbrella in the future. In case the king ran all the way over, the king can hide over here. Makes sense. But actually, in this position, queen c3, after queen d6, queen c3 is a correct defensive measure. Because imagine, whenever white pushed this pawn to c7, the next move is bound to be queen d7. Once queen d7 is played, we can give a check on e5, and when the king comes down, we can give a check on e1. That leads to a perpetual check checking on e5 or e1. Unfortunately, black missed this chance and went for queen c4. The idea of which is also reasonable, trying to go all the way over to f4 and then to go to c1. But this is incorrect for the following reason. c7, king h7, queen d7, and now after queen f4, we can simply move up with the king. Ultimately, it arrives on e4, and if we give any more checks, the king can either run and hide, or, I don't know, perhaps there might be no more checks to deliver. So black resigned here. Now, what we can pick up from this position is that in more complex situations, you should mind the pawn structure. And the pawn structure generally decides what kind of perpetual check the other side, the defensive side, can give. And when you're able to stop any perpetual check, you can safely push your passed pawn and ultimately go for a promotion. Now we're done with the first imbalance, which is passed pawns. And the second imbalance I'm going to talk about is tactical possibilities. Take a look at this position. I hope you can find the correct move. It is actually pretty creative, but very reasonable. I hope you pause the video, and now let me give you the answer. It is c4. The simple reason is that if b takes c4, the correct move is definitely queen b6. If queen takes c4, there's queen d6. And if king c4, there's queen c3. 3 simple mate in ones. But now, after the move c4, the more complex defensive measure would be queen d3, but actually it is not all that difficult anyhow. After queen c6, king d4, queen d5, king e3, queen d3, takes. This is an easy win for white. So this is an example of a tactical possibility. Generally, winning tactical motifs include checkmate, demonstrated in these 3 examples, and also the exchange or the win of a queen. If the pawn endgame in the end benefits the side, is benefiting you, then basically exchanging or winning the queen is the same. If not, then you should try to win the queen. And of course, talking about tactics, the defensive side can also have tactics, which often lies in stalemate resources. For example, in this position, you find your own king tucked away in this corner, so you probably should have a hope of moving in over here and trying to trick him into stalemate over here. Now let's take a look at the line. King f2, queen f7, king e1, queen e6, king d1, queen b3, king d2, queen a2, king e3, queen b3, queen d3, and now king a1 is the critical move. The queen is defending the g8 promotion square. This queen cannot move, thereby it must take, and after this is stalemate. Again, I would love to mention that in chess, if the side to move does not have a legal move, it is counted as a draw, which is called stalemate. It is not counted as a win for the side that is not to move. Okay, so now I finished showing you 2 tactics in the endgames. One is winning, and one is a defensive tactical resource. Both of which are definitely all very important. Now, the next example I would love to give consists of the third imbalance I'm going to talk about today, which is also the most complex. It is called queen activity. Let me show you. Here, black played queen c5. It is targeting e5, a demonstration of queen activity. Now, white played queen d8, king h7, queen d3, g6, and queen c3, asking for a trade, which is going to lead to a drawn pawn endgame. So, black decided to play queen d5. Now, further centralizing the queen, targeting 2 pawns at once, forcing a3, and after queen d1, queen d1, queen d3, king g1, white is further passivalized. In case you're wondering why queen e2 doesn't work, it's because after checks, the queen comes back to block, and we win a pawn on p2. Queen c2 is played, queen a1 is literally the only move to properly defend this pawn, which shows how devastating this position already is. After a beautiful move, a5, the purpose of which is to play a4 and consolidate the pawn structure over here, g3, a4, now f4 runs into this beautiful move. Insane, doesn't it? But the idea here is that white actually is in zugzwang. The queen cannot move out unless to give up defense on this pawn. So white has to play something like this. Now black responds with h5, h4, and black, cool, calm, collected, plays king g7. Now, white's defense is going to corrupt. After king h1, queen f2, queen g1, queen b2, black successfully wins the pawn. Now, of course, there's still work to be done. Queen c4, b4 is the critical move, and things can actually get slightly crazy here. f5, ef, e6, b takes a3, ef, blocking the check, queen a3, and now queen d3 is the winning move. After queen a2, we play queen f1, king h2, queen f2, takes. This requires great understanding of the space on the board, and also, of course, superb calculation. So I left queen activity as the third major imbalance for this reason. It is the most difficult, and if you don't really understand for now, it's okay. It takes time to study and to learn. So now, after looking at 5 positions, you are fully equipped with the 3 imbalances of queen endgames: passed pawns, tactical possibilities, and queen activity.